anytime you buy something, you should have an exit plan and you should write it down.
GM, good morning. Welcome to Milk Road Radio, where we tell you what's going on in crypto faster than a nun on rollerblades. It's Tuesday, June 11th. I'm Jay Hamilton, and today's guest is Zeneca. We'll talk about his take on the markets, where we're at in the cycle, his portfolio breakdown, and where he sees the alpha right now. GM, Zeneca, welcome back to Milk Road Radio.
GM, good to be back. New format, but I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're excited, man. Let's start with your portfolio. Can you give us a high-level overview of what your portfolio looks like right now?
Yeah, and let me preface it by saying that I got into crypto in 2021 and it was very heavy NFTs. Two and a half years ago, my portfolio was 98% NFTs and like 2% everything else. Now I've been like slowly trying to get that percentage down ever since then. Now it's probably sitting at around 30% in NFTs, which I feel pretty good about, especially because the NFTs that I have left are the ones I have the highest conviction in, things like CryptoPunk, Pudgy Penguins, a few gaming projects. So let's say 30% NFTs, probably about 10 to 15% in various meme coins. Probably my biggest bag there is Degen on Base. Big fan of that. I barely even call it a meme coin. And then a smattering of other things. Probably second biggest is Pacmoon over on Blast. And then I think maybe another 20% in altcoins, maybe 25%, things like Prime, the gaming token, which has taken a battering this week, a few other things in that category. And then I'd probably say the rest is in the majors / stables. So Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and some USDC. I have very little actual Bitcoin. So most of it is in ETH and Sol, ETH being the bigger of the two bags there. I am a big fan of ETH, but also of Solana. So yeah. And then I guess I'll also say I've taken a bunch of money out this cycle, put it into like real estate and just diversified outside of crypto as well. So what I just said was just my crypto portfolio, not my sort of overall investing portfolio.
Thanks so much for breaking that down for us. It's interesting to hear you say that you don't have a lot in Bitcoin. We released a Milk Road portfolio recently, and in that portfolio, we hold no Bitcoin right now. And we got a lot of backlash for not holding Bitcoin. And we said very clearly, it's not that we don't believe in Bitcoin. We think Bitcoin still has a long way to go. We think it still has probably, I would say 2 to 3x in this cycle. But right now, I would say there's a lot of other assets that have more potential for the rest of this cycle. Is that your conviction and your reason for having less Bitcoin? Is that is that a recent move? Did you reallocate recently?
No, I've historically never held much Bitcoin, basically for the same reasons. I've always felt, insanely bullish on Bitcoin always, but also ETH. And I guess I've felt that ETH could do more multiples than Bitcoin, over a 3-5 year time horizon, 10-year time horizon. And so when I consider, and Solana as well. So when I consider myself putting it in like the safe crypto coins, ETH and Solana are probably the two there. However, I often think back to, a year ago, and if I had just sold everything and put it in Bitcoin, then Bitcoin has done, 3 to 4x. I have not done a 3 to 4x of my portfolio in the last year. And so I really do think a lot about how much more difficult it is getting to sort of pick the right altcoins, because there's just so many more things this time around than previous cycles. We're seeing it time and time again with all the L2s, with all the L1s, all the meme coins on them, different NFTs. It's getting all the gaming tokens. It's getting so much more difficult to pick the right altcoins. In theory, it's great. You allocate away from Bitcoin, you hold other things that, Bitcoin does a 2x and your altcoins do a 10x or a 20x. And then in a perfect world, when the cycle is topping, you sell off and put it back into Bitcoin or put it into stables. But I'm sort of coming around to the idea that maybe that's not the wisest move, both from whether or not that will actually outperform and whether I'll pick the right tokens, but also from just sort of a mental clarity and peace of life mindset where, it takes a lot of time to manage a portfolio of meme coins and altcoins and NFTs, whereas you can just sit back with, Bitcoin and ETH and Sol and be like, you know what, I have 50% of my overall net worth or 20% or whatever and 30% in crypto. I'm good. 5 years, 10 years. I'm very bullish on this space. So that has been my logic the whole time while I've had 0% in Bitcoin or close to zero. But I'm starting to change my mind on that, actually.
Says the guy who it's hard to manage meme coins, NFTs, and altcoins. And I'm trying to do the math of what you just said. It was over 50% of your portfolio was probably
something like
in
that.
those
Yeah.
three buckets. So
I've been, it's just like this Sisyphean task of consistently trying to sell off those parts of my portfolio. And then I get shiny object syndrome, be like, oh, but Pacmoon, that's got that. I mean, I have so much conviction in that. I got to get a bag of that. And this other thing comes along and this other thing. And yeah, I just actually, like 3 weeks ago, I put a tweet out basically saying, I want to stop buying anything. Here are my wallets. If anyone sees me buy anything in the next week, I will just pay you $2,000. And that like forced me to basically not buy anything. Of course, like 8 days afterwards, I'm buying stuff again. So I think I need to implement something like that, and just to sort of force myself not to buy stuff, because I clearly don't have the self-control to, if I have ETH in a hot wallet, it just gets spent on something. I'll FOMO into something. Very few people are immune to the lure of FOMO in this space.
Yeah, I mean, very few people in the whole world are immune to FOMO.
Yeah.
It's a real feeling that controls us every day. I just want to double click on Pacmoon and Degen, since you brought up both of those, and you said specifically you have a lot of conviction on Pacmoon. And I also like that you said that you don't think Degen is a meme coin. Can you talk us through your conviction on Pacmoon, and then maybe talk a little bit about Degen?
Yeah, so Pacmoon, for those who don't know, is basically the biggest meme coin on the Blast ecosystem. Blast is an L2 on Ethereum, and I'm bullish on Blast and that whole ecosystem, and I'm bullish on meme coins. And it's just sort of, there's something called the barbell strategy, where you look at, let's say you buy ETH and then you buy the biggest meme coin on ETH. Let's say Pepe, you buy Sol and then you buy the biggest meme coin on Sol, which is WIF. And generally that strategy seems to do well. And I think the same will happen with Blast, where I'm bullish on Blast. I think Blast will do well. And because of it, the biggest meme coin on Blast will probably do well, just as we've seen the biggest meme coin on other chains also do well. Pacmoon has incredible network effects. It has basically every big builder on Blast, every big project on Blast, every big influencer on Blast, everyone on Blast basically has some. I think they have 85,000 holders. Now, obviously, a lot of that is bots and multi-accounts and stuff like that, but that's kind of crazy for an L2 meme coin. So that's why I'm bullish on Pacmoon, and I think it is just a really reasonable thing to be holding from a meme coin perspective. And then over on Degen, I basically feel the same way about Degen as like the barbell strategy for the base ecosystem. Now, there's a lot more competition over on base. There are some other meme coins that are, in a similar market cap or FDV as Degen. So it's not for sure clear that is the one that is going to win the meme coin race over on base. But I think, and this is going back to what I said about it not being such of a meme coin, I think of it more as like a culture coin, and it's sort of embedded into the Farcaster ecosystem. I'm very bullish on Farcaster. It has, a lot of the base team is, talking about it, building with it. There's a lot of apps that have integrated payments in Degen. It has its own L3, which I have mixed feelings about. I think L3s, L3s is too much for me right now. Like, there's enough with all the L2s. I just can't be bridging to L3s and doing stuff on them. But it just goes to show that they've built out this infrastructure and ecosystem, and I'm bullish on it. And I'm like, the two L2s I'm the most bullish on are Base and Blast, and basically Pacmoon and Degen are the two biggest meme coins on them.
Interesting that you mentioned two biggest L2s you're bullish on are Blast and Base, because Base, obviously, and Coinbase launching on-chain summer recently, really putting a lot of marketing dollars behind building the on-chain brand, and Blast TGE coming up next week. So both are getting a lot of hype from more the marketing side than necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, their tokens are doing well, but is that where your bullish vibes come from? Is it because you see?
Pretty much, yeah. I guess I should clarify. The bullishness is, I am long-term bullish on both, but I'm especially bullish over the next, say, 3 months on both because of on-chain summer, of the Coinbase smart wallet, of the marketing that they're putting out there to onboard people, of the amount of users they already have on Coinbase. And then Blast, TGE, I think it's actually a week after next, 26th of June or 25th of June, something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of eyeballs on Blast. And I think that the concept of Blast is really, really strong. This whole native yield, where if you just have money sitting on the chain, you're earning money off of it. Like a great example is there's this app, IKB, which is like a daily fantasy sports app like DraftKings or FanDuel, but they charge no rake because if you want to play the tournaments, you deposit some money onto the site, $1,000, $500, $50, whatever your bankroll is, $10,000, and then you play the tournaments with that bankroll. And if they have thousands, tens of thousands of users, all of a sudden they've got a treasury of 10, 20, 50 million. They're earning, 10% if it's USDB, whatever. That's enough to pay them and make their revenue on. And it's like DeFi, cuts down fees and eliminates the middleman. But this is for everything. And I think it's really interesting and compelling. So I think I am bullish on both long term. But yeah, especially over the next 3 months, the attention they're going to get is great. Like Optimism, Arbitrum, also very bullish on them. Hard not to be. Yeah.
You can't be in everything. I think that's the thing you said.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of are in everything, maybe as a result of being in the space for so long, but also I do think you make a good point. And if you were to advise somebody who's investing in the space, would you tell them to be focused and to only pick some projects as opposed to trying to be in everything?
Yeah, I think over diversification is, I would say, worse than under diversification. I think you get death by 1,000 cuts if you try and be in everything and catch everything. It's much better to have like a portfolio of 5 or 10 things that you have a lot of conviction in than have a portfolio like mine where I have thousands of NFTs and probably 50 to 80 different tokens that I have, say, more than $500 value of. It's just too much, and I've been constantly trying to cut back and streamline it because of mistakes I made over the last 2-3 years by just having too much stuff spread out everywhere. It's unmanageable. You miss airdrops, you miss claims, you miss timing windows, you miss selling the top, you miss news events, you miss so much value. And again, it's manic on the mind. So and one other thing I just remembered of Blast and Base versus Arbitrum and Optimism. Arbitrum and Optimism have already had their tokens. Their TGEs are out there. The tokens are circulating. Blast is coming up, and Base, they say there's no token. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 years there is a Base token because regulatory landscape in America clears up. But that's another reason to be a little more bullish on them from sort of an investing perspective, I think.
What do you think about Blast TGE? How do you think it affects the price?
Yeah, I mean, it's anyone's guess. I think it depends a little bit on the overall crypto market. Like if Bitcoin falls off a cliff over the next week, then it's going to struggle out of the gate. If we're basically where we are now, which, we've been treading water for so long that's probably the best bet, is we're going to be roughly, around 70K Bitcoin and 36, 37, 3,800 ETH. I think that's a really good shot to come out of the gate strong. There's so much sort of positive momentum and excitement and energy behind it. And one thing we know about Pacman, the founder of Blast and of Blur, is that he is a genius at building incentive structures to basically keep people. He's the master of Ponzonomics. He finds a way to keep value on the chain, to get people depositing more, to keep playing the game. I would be shocked if there's not some plan to basically just supercharge the Blast ecosystem after TGE. I don't know what it is, but I'm bullish on Pacman, I'm bullish on Blast, and I think that we'll see something exciting come out of the gate.
And evidence says that we will, because every time a season ended over on Blur, everyone thought, okay, well, the season is ending. This must be the end of the incentives. The price is going to drop. And every single time it didn't happen. It was remarkable. Like you said, he's a true master at the crypto gambling casino and bringing everybody in and getting them excited to be a part of it. So yeah, I agree that I have no idea what they will do, but I would put my money on it being something that captures attention. And maybe, I mean, obviously external factors aside, if the whole market goes through a dip, then that's going to affect them in ways that they can't control. But maybe it also is the thing that captures the attention during. I'm curious what you think is going to happen over the next few months. We feel like there's a bullish macro setup. We talked in a recent episode about how everything is lining up for interest rates going down, and it looks like there's going to be the money printer is going to start burning again. But we also recognize that summer can often be a flat period, and maybe the next bump doesn't come until the fall. What's your thought?
I pretty much agree with that. I was just thinking earlier today that people are touching grass, like literally. People are not, and there's also this there's animosity on the timeline. People are fighting with each other. There's like tribal maximalism from one chain to another. I think I would be shocked if we get some crazy blow off upward action in the next 1 or 2 months. I think macro needs a little more time to sort of get all the pieces in place, and the existing crypto participants need sort of, I don't know, maybe like a little bit more pain or a little bit more, another washout, or I don't know. I doubt we drop to like 40K Bitcoin, but we could drop to 58K, we could drop to 60K. There could be another 15-20% dip before it resumes up only, or we just continue to chop within a 5-10% range and then it's up only. But yeah, I agree. I think I see people saying, is the top in? Have we already topped? Is this the end? And I tweeted this yesterday. When the top is in, everyone on Twitter isn't talking about how the top is in. People are talking about how it's a new paradigm, it's a new world order, how crypto is going to be everywhere and everything. And I think if the top is in, the top for crypto like permanently is in. If we go down from here and just like I'm very bearish long term in crypto. It's like, all right, we tried for 15 years and didn't make it. I do not believe that at all. I have a lot of conviction in crypto. The US government is becoming more accepting of it. Both political parties are accepting it. There's ETFs. It's becoming mainstream. To me, it's a matter of time. And yeah, I think that happens later this year or early next year. And basically, we just see sort of a slightly different, but not too different 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's so funny how many people are sitting there saying, oh, it's so different than past cycles. But when you step back and you look at it, we actually might be the exact same as past cycles. We're just so impatient. We just want it to happen sooner, and we don't understand why we're not there yet. But we're really only, 5-6 months into this cycle. I mean, depending on when you would say it started.
Yeah.
So it is amusing to see that, and I love that tweet that you put out. You mentioned that you did this bet or this thing where you said I'll pay you $2,000 if I buy anything in the last week, and then that 8 days later you did. What did you buy when you came back?
Yeah, it was like 8-9 days later. I honestly can't even remember at this point. Probably some fantasy cards, because I'm still a big fan of Fantasy Top over on Blast. Literally before this call, I was entering lineups because I have a tournament starting tonight. I still think it's a really fun game and compelling game. So that was probably it, but honestly, I don't remember. It could have been a meme coin. It could have been something else, but yeah.
Do you think Fantasy Top is here to stay, or do you think it's like FriendTech and it's just a pump and then a dump?
So Clemente on Twitter has been posting sort of a chart of FriendTech in terms of like revenue and daily active users, and like superimposing a graph of Fantasy Top over it. And it's basically so far following a similar trend where there's this massive spike to begin with and a massive drop off, and then like a resurgence like a month or two later. And I think we're starting to see that resurgence now. I think it's still too soon to say whether it's here to stay. It's very difficult to make a crypto app that has longevity and has people interested in it, especially when there's financial incentives. Those usually seem to burn brighter and burn faster. But I think there is something there. It's really fun. It is compelling. They have a lot of issues that they need to work out. Their most recent update seems to have potentially addressed a bunch of them and got people happy about it. I noticed that a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people were bearish on it. Seemed very whale friendly, very pay to win, very little strategy involved. But I think that they're iterating quickly, shipping quickly, and coming up with new ideas. But it's still too soon to say whether it's here to stay. I hope it is. I have a lot of fun with it. And I think that I will say that I think there's at least one more pump left. So I don't think it's topped and going to die. If it does die, it'll probably, again, follow a similar trajectory to FriendTech, where, FriendTech did again go crazy. Now, again, obviously the Friend token is has seen better days. But I'm still cautiously optimistically bullish on Fantasy Top.
If you were talking to somebody who is not in Fantasy Top right now, not playing the game, has not played it yet, would you tell them to get involved, or is the barrier to entry too high, and is it too complex to get into now? Have you sort of missed it?
It depends on their bankroll, how much money that they have to put in. But I think it's still very plus EV just to buy a bunch of the cheapest cards you possibly can in the hope that they win another Blast jackpot, which gives out gold per card. Maybe enter some, like, if you take the time to really understand it and learn it, I think you can enter some lineups into competitions that will get you a good return on your money, give you the potential chance to win a Blast jackpot, and have the possibility for price appreciation on the cards. And I think it's like Clemente, again, to keep singing his praises, has been the shining example of this, where as the FUD has been going on the last few weeks, he's been paying attention, buying cards that drop a lot in price, and then as sentiment turns and price action picks back up, he's been selling into that. And I think he's made well into 5 figures on Fantasy Top, and the opportunity is still there for someone. And it's so much better now than say a month ago when prices were crazy inflated. Now they've crashed back down to reality. There's been a bit of an uptick, but I think there's still a lot of good opportunity for someone who has the time. But I'll sort of double down on that and say you really do need to put in the time to get a good grasp on it, because it does require some active participation to get the most out of.
Before we wrap up here, any final thoughts on projects that you're watching or things that you're excited about, sort of not quite yet, but coming up maybe in the next few months?
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically sounding like a broken record at this point between Blast and Base, but that's basically where most of my attention is over the next few months. I'm honestly myself sort of taking a step back, touching grass a little more. I'm on vacation a little bit here and there, doing some travel, kind of trimming back my portfolio. I think this is a good time, while the market is kind of choppy and there's not that much happening, to take stock of your portfolio, take a step back. One exercise that I really, really recommend everyone does on a regular basis, but definitely do it at least once, is sit down with pen and paper or with a Google sheet open and list out every token you own, at least that you own, like more than $50, $100, whatever small amount of, and every NFT if you have NFTs. And then in another column, put in how much conviction you have in them: high conviction, medium conviction, low conviction. And you'll quickly start to realize you own a bunch of stuff. This is true for most people, not everyone. You own a bunch of stuff that you have like low conviction in. Maybe it's some crappy meme coin you bought because your friend told you about it and you don't really have much conviction, but it was just a gamble. Oh, you have like 7 of these now. Well, maybe that's something you might want to do. You might want to do something about that. And consider how you might allocate your portfolio to mostly high conviction things and maybe a couple of low conviction gambles. It's a really good exercise, and I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. Such a great exercise to do. I think the other thing I would add is also have an exit plan. Like throw in one more column that is like, what's my exit or what's my expectation here? So that maybe you don't necessarily know your exit plan in terms of like timing, but you know that you've said when you go into an investment, hey, once this 2X's, I'm going to take 50% out and then just leave the profits on the table, for example, whatever that might be. Because the thing is, once you get into it, it is, especially as you said, we're not really in the euphoria stage yet. And once you get into that euphoria stage, which we all think is coming later this year, early next year, tough to predict the exact timing, then it's very hard to make these types of decisions. Whereas right now it's pretty easy to say, yeah, this should be my plan with this investment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think anytime you buy something, you should have an exit plan and you should write it down. It's one thing to have it in your mind and be like, yeah, I'm probably going to, if it does a 3X, I'm going to sell half. And if you write it down, you're much more likely to stick to it. You still don't always stick to it, but it makes it much, much more likely. The other thing, one last thought that just popped into my head while we were talking about this is everyone is chasing like 100X. Everyone is chasing the big 50X, 100X, and they think, oh, that's what I'm going to retire on. I saw a tweet, I can't remember who said it. And basically, if you have $1,000 and you get a 10X, you're just 3 10Xs away from $1 million, which is, there's 10Xs in this space. They're not everywhere, but they're pretty frequent. You can find quite a lot of 10Xs. Do it 3 times with $1,000 and you got $1 million. It's much easier than trying to 1,000X $1,000 or 100X $10,000. That's very, very difficult.
That's a great point. Maybe we should, our next show should be the 3 10Xs that we recommend right now. Zen, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for your time today. Excited that you'll be a more frequent and regular guest on the show moving forward. Before we finish up, where can people follow you, where they can find you online?
Best place is on Twitter at Zeneca. That's the best place. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. And yeah, I'm also excited to be coming back regularly and shooting the shit with you.
Right on, my man. Okay, well, have a great day. Thanks for listening in, everybody. We'll let you go, Zen. Talk to you later.
Cheers.
Here's what you missed in news from the past week. First up, the US Bitcoin ETF experienced a massive influx of $1.8 billion between June 3rd and 7th. This led to the purchase of over 25,000 BTC, a staggering amount that is 8 times greater than the total Bitcoin mined during that same time period. Now, this is remarkable. And this week saw almost as much Bitcoin acquired as the entire month of May. It also represents the largest weekly acquisition since Bitcoin reached its all-time high back in mid-March. Next up, the on-chain social platform FriendTech announced that they are moving away from Coinbase's Layer 2 network Base to establish their own blockchain called FriendChain. This new blockchain will be developed in collaboration with Conduit. Now, the FriendTech platform aims to leverage its native token Friend for gas fees on FriendChain, potentially increasing the token's utility and giving FriendTech more control over its ecosystem. This strategic decision comes at a time when FriendTech has experienced a decrease in user engagement despite a recent upgrade. The success of FriendChain could be crucial for the platform's future growth. That's all for today. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to Milk Road Radio, the easiest path to get smarter about crypto. If you like this episode, share it and hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, then we'll leave a link to Milk Road Pro as well, your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto is risky, so you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and we'll see you in the next one.